Welcome. I'm so excited to be joined today by Ian and Kristen, who are co-founders of SolSeed Retreats. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, we're happy to be here.
I think we've done now like a dozen retreats with SolSeed, and so we're so grateful. And we had a couple retreats lined up for 2020, as I'm sure you had with other places as well. So with the great reset of 2020, what are you excited about for this new year? What's coming in 2021?
Man, that's a question that has probably been answered different every 2 weeks going back in time for the last 10 months.
Yeah.
I would say that right now we feel as optimistic about 2021 being a year where we can get back out into the world. And I think it's going to be a really interesting year for travel, coming off of a time where everyone went from being really external with their careers, with travel, with social media, with everything. It was all about projecting. And the last 10 months have been about getting into your, a lot more introspective in your family, in your little pod, in your house. So it's going to be a really great year. I feel like the perspective of international travel is one of the greatest reasons to do it. And coming off of a year of introspection and perspective shifting is going to lead to, I think, some really profound travel experiences across the board. We certainly feel a simmering wanderlust in our communities. It's been boiling over for us for months. But even, I feel like a lot of people have learned a lot about themselves in their houses, in the smallest of spaces, in themselves, and are ready to go out and view the world again through a new set of eyes, which I think is going to be really exciting on everyone's individual front.
Yeah.
From a business perspective, we hope to get back to business.
Yeah.
We're extremely fortunate to be in a position to wait this long and get back out on the road.
When it's safe to do so.
Right. And that's going to be sort of the biggest question of 2021 is where on that spectrum does everyone's community fall? Do they fall? And when is going to be the right time to get back on the road? It feels like it's coming, with the advent of some, I think there's 3 different vaccines that are, approved worldwide at this point and already in distribution. So fingers crossed, it feels like we're coming back. And man, hasn't that been an interesting shift?
I like how you said, Ian, about that you had a chance, and a lot of people had a chance to really bring things in and reflect inward. And while that may have been hard and continues to be hard, it's certainly a way to go into the dark and come out into the light, so to speak, right? So what are some of the things that you guys have learned? Have you had time to maybe adapt or shift, or any new pivots that are coming out of this time for you guys, personally or professionally, or a mix?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, this is the longest that we have been home in about 4 years. So we've been home in New Hampshire since March, been about 10 months. And I think for myself personally, being grounded here has been really good. In the beginning, it was kind of scary. We didn't know what was coming next, but personally, I'm just so thankful that we have a home to call home, that we have a place that we love to be, and that up here we have access to so much space, outdoorsy things to do. Nature has frankly been, I think, our saving grace. Ian and I have hiked nearly 600 miles since COVID started, and we've really gotten to explore our own backyard. And specifically the hills of New Hampshire, we've been spending a ton of time up there, just getting outside, hiking, and being present. And I think that's one thing that COVID has really helped me with, is to slow down, because we're always like go, 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 planning 12 months out, looking forward. And this time has caused us to really, has forced us, I guess you could say, to be present. And that is not a bad thing. It's actually been quite beneficial.
That kind of stuff. There's definitely been this element of really understanding who your social network is in like the old ways, like who can you count on? Who can you trust when there's just so much odd stuff going on in terms of, like, I want to have a dinner party, but wow, that's an exercise at this point. Better to not do it at all. But let's say we can have a fire outside and I haven't socialized in months. Like, how do I keep the guest list to 6 people? Who are those people? How do I select them? And now there's different factors. So it's been really interesting in that regard. Again, we're very fortunate that we find ourselves in sort of a space where it's hard to keep a guest list to 6 versus needing a few people to lean on and not having them there. We're certainly in a beneficial position. And then the whole virtual connection versus real connection thing, where the majority of our connections are through Zoom and phone calls and that kind of stuff. I've spoken with my parents on the phone more in the last 10 months than I had in probably the previous 15 years. Just never made the time because I'll go see them and I'd hang out for a weekend. So it's interesting. Like, I'm further from them than I've ever been, but I'm more involved in their daily life than I've ever been. So it's been kind of an interesting dichotomy in that regard. But it's been nice.
Yeah, no, that's, I'm glad to hear that there have been some silver linings. And I think that, with this going on for almost a year now, there's got to be something that we've all learned, and we each have our areas that we focused and learning and knowledge sharing, which is a big part of what we're doing in this series, and taking the time when we can't physically be together to at least share some knowledge. And I understand you have some tips for some of our viewers who will check out this video.
We want to provide people with one practice in particular that literally every successful retreat leader that we've ever worked with is good at. And that is, we call it anyways, we call that the practice of creating and maintaining a VIP list. Some people we work with, they call it their like repeat retreaters, or I don't know, some funny, funky name. It's an essential practice, and it's something that can be done today. It can be done quietly and privately. It can be done vocally and publicly. It can be done however you feel comfortable doing it today. But that is, this practice of identifying the people who will support your retreat business. And if you follow this practice diligently, you will fill at least half of all of your retreats with people who are on that list, which is very important. Whatever your goals are going into a retreat, at some point, there's a head count that corresponds. It might be a 6-person retreat. That's your goal. You still need 6 people. You want to go to Tibet, you still need 6 or 7 people. It depends on the goal. If it's a community leader, like a fitness studio, then they're going to have demand, which will require them to take 20 or so people, so as they don't feel exclusionary and leaving people out. Regardless, they're all sort of keeping a segmented side list of who those people are. So we want to talk a little bit about like who those people are, how you can grow and maintain that list, and then what you'll end up doing with it. This may be stuff that you already do, frankly. Like, this is just sort of second nature to you as a community builder and connector, but it might not be. And there's a lot of value in the actual practice of it. So we're gonna just kind of walk through that. So who goes on a list? If you haven't actually created one in the past, it's past retreaters. If you've got a retreat business, international and domestic, it's friends from retreats that you've attended. That's actually a really powerful one people overlook. But you already know these people like to go on retreats, and you share interests with them, you become friends. And they are also very valuable people to bounce ideas off because they've been on retreats and they have things they like and don't like. Class regulars, sort of the obvious ones, workshop participants, combing through your existing email lists, social media lists, that kind of stuff. You can identify people that do a lot of traveling. You might see that or have spoken with them about it, or have voiced to you at some point that they're interested in traveling or envious of trips you've taken, et cetera. And I'd say one that a lot of people really overlook, especially the beginners, is friends, family. Significant others will tend to come. Think of those people as well. They want to support you. There doesn't necessarily need to be a minimum bar met in terms of, I don't know. Most people kind of set these bars in their head. They're like, well, if they're not a really strong yoga practitioner, they probably wouldn't go on a yoga retreat. False.
Yeah.
Not the case. So, to sort of think broadly about it, and if you have questions, like, I don't want to spam anybody or harass anybody that's not interested, et cetera. Well, I've only mentioned people so far. So ask them.
Yeah, no, I think that is phenomenal advice, because it's amazing how many leaders will spend a lot of time on the organizing side of the retreat and a lot of time on the logistics and what the retreat's going to be and all the bells and whistles they want to include. And then there's almost no insight into, well, how am I going to fill this and how am I going to get these people there? And what you bring, I know, Ian, you have this amazing sales background and you've been able to apply it into SolSeed, and Kristen, with your background as a teacher and having run retreats before and continuing to do so, you're able to really mix those. And that's, it's a huge help for any leader, because that's the stress. And most people say, oh, well, I feel uncomfortable asking, but getting that insight as to how and getting that advice is so huge in the support of a retreat organizer. That's amazing.
Right.
Exactly.
And when you're doing it is really important too, because it may be uncomfortable to ask your mother to lay out $3,500 for a 1-week trip. But it's not as uncomfortable to ask your mother if how she feels about a certain itinerary, or if she'd be interested in one day visiting that place with you. It's sort of a smaller ask. And I'll leave it at that. But yes, you brought up some interesting stuff about how, and Kristen said it before too, like it's fun to think about leading a retreat. It's exciting and whatnot. And it's deeply personal. But you've got to sort of get to the point where it's not really about you.
Yeah.
If you have a program you want to bring forth, that's terrific.
Right.
And you want to share that with people, but they need to be on board.
Right. If you have nobody that actually wants to do what you want to do or go where you want to go or spend the money or, the place you're thinking about bringing them to, then you don't have a group. Mm-hmm. And like you said, Remy, so many people get caught up in the itinerary and the planning, but don't think about who's actually going to be on that trip. And we found this practice to be just so powerful in manifesting your entire retreat. You have to envision who's going to be there.
Yeah. So this is a really easy practice that can be done today. You're not blasting out on your public forums that you do have a retreat signed up, which can put someone in a position where they feel vulnerable. Right. They've made a statement and now they have to back it up. Or, literally you might have conflicted feelings today about advertising international travel during a pandemic that hasn't been reined in entirely. Mm-hmm. But you can do these things along the way for when the time is right. And as I mentioned before, successful retreat leaders, and when we talk about successful retreat leaders, that's anybody that is achieving their goals through retreats, whatever that might be. But they're all constantly curating this list and adding people to it and sort of, kindly omitting people that may have said once or twice, like, yeah, this is great, but I just got married and have a kid. I'm not going to be doing that in the next 3 years. They're constantly sort of on it. And how do people go about building these lists? What are some things that you can do even today? Certainly, if you're still teaching, either in person or remotely, there's the ever-present classroom sort of announcement, workshop announcement, et cetera. You can send out a general email. Hey, it's 2021. Wishing you all the best. By the way, I plan to be launching an international retreat program. If you want to be on the VIP list or learn more about it, get in touch with me. Same messaging can be sent out through social media. You could host virtual events about your excitement to travel and just sort of have a open discussion about anything. And promote there for people to get on the list if they wish. But the biggest thing here is that you want to make this list physical, concrete. It has to exist. It has to be easy to join. You know, you can have a passing conversation with someone that says, yes, I want to be on that list. You need to be able to register them to that list easily so you don't miss it. And it's got to be easy to, air quotes here, to work, meaning for you to reference. So it wouldn't hurt beyond name and email address or form of contact to drop a couple notes about, oh yeah, it mentioned they were very interested in hiking, whatever it might be. And so that way you'll be amazed at how these little connections with people, when you remember that I had this conversation with you, you're interested in hiking and I'm doing this thing that's going to involve hiking, really just people perk right up. They're like, they remember me. It's incredibly powerful. And by having a physical list, like a really intentioned list, you'll accomplish that, and you'll begin the practice of working it subconsciously, essentially.
And I bet the leaders that have this list ready and populated are going to be the ones that when things do open, which they will, and in our experience this past summer of 2020, things in Europe were much calmer and the Azores was virus free. And suddenly we had a swarm of people coming. It wasn't anything like normal, so to speak, but in terms going from nothing to 30% occupancy was certainly felt like a swarm of yay business. But I think when people can travel, they will. And so the people that follow your advice here are going to be the ones that actually have their program together and filled in time to actually get people out.
They absolutely will.
Exactly.
And in the meantime, the practice of maintaining the list will help them to inform their decisions on location, itinerary, timing, price.
Yeah.
And as Chris had mentioned, like the making the list physical allows you to visualize all of these things. When you see someone's name that you've written down and you think about them as a person, you start to see the group in your head. You start to feel the vibe of the trip. And that makes planning it way easier, and it makes selling it way more comfortable.
And I think that's from a venue perspective, one thing we love about working with you is that you know who is a fit for which place. And that is such a huge part of having a retreat, is having that fit, that vibe. Who is SolSeed Retreats?
So SolSeed Retreats, well, I personally started teaching yoga back in 2011, believe it or not, in Boston. Taught yoga for a long time there, and that, my love of travel eventually led to wanting to expand where I was teaching. So I started running retreats abroad, which was amazing, growing my own community. And Ian and I together, actually, when we were on our honeymoon in the Azores, staying at Mini Vita, came up with the idea of SolSeed Retreats in the fall of 2016. Basically, we were looking for a way to escape winter in Boston and do more of what we love, which is travel and bringing people together through travel and through fitness. So as SolSeed, we work with lots of fitness community leaders and studio owners. We help them to grow their retreat businesses through building and maintaining a sustainable retreat program. So that's our main goal. We work with everyone from first-time retreat instructors who kind of have no idea where to start, to experienced retreat leaders who are, maybe looking to expand locations, expand their groups, and just want support in continuing to grow their retreat business. So what separates us from all those other retreat planning services out there? Well, we do the basic things, helping you develop itineraries and selecting locations that are good for your community. But we also go above and beyond to help you develop a comprehensive sales and marketing strategy, pricing strategy that will enable you to fill your retreat and hit your earnings goals, which are things that are really important that a lot of retreat leaders don't really think about when they're starting the planning process. They just get super excited and they tend to overlook some of the basics. Leading up to the retreat, we also act as a booking agent, so personal booking agent for your trip, to ensure that registration goes smoothly, all the FAQs are answered. And then once we're on the ground, we actually provide an on-site concierge as well so that our leaders don't have to worry about the little logistics, but can really focus on holding space for their communities, developing relationships with their students, and continuing to grow this incredible line of business for them.
So how can people find you? So we're going to include your links and everything in the post, of course, but how can people connect with you and learn more?
So people can check out our website, which is just www.solseedretreats.com.
SOL.
SOL, yep, like sun in Spanish. And also Instagram, we're pretty active on there. It's just our handle @SolSeed Retreats. We're also on Facebook, SolSeed Retreats. So any of those ways, feel free to reach out to us at any point. We'd love to have conversations, even if you're a retreat leader who is thinking about maybe planning something, maybe this fall, maybe in 2022 or beyond. We have a lot of free time right now, so we're always happy to just have conversations and have good conversations about, you know, things that light us up, like locations and VIP lists versus, you know, canceling retreats. We'd much rather have ones right now.
Even if you already have your retreat planned and you've just had a hiccup or whatever and are looking for someone to bounce an idea off, we love to share our experience. We've traveled with close to 500 people at this point, and you know, we've probably overcome the hurdle or not, and can help sort of discuss it. And we're very much believers that, you know, as everybody sort of goes down this path and enjoys it, then there's plenty of abundance for everybody. So it's not like a
competition.
It's not a competition. We're not going to.
It's making a bigger pie, right?
Yeah.
And what do you love, and what do your groups love about coming to the Azores? If you had to say like top 2 or 3 things.
I'd say raw, natural beauty, number 1. Food, and just the local culture. And just plethora of activities, so much to do, and so much to do outdoors, which I think in this new world that we're in, people have a much greater appreciation of the outdoors and space. And I think the Azores is the perfect place to retreat to, not to mention it's a direct flight from Boston. So one flight, you're there, safe, easy. I don't know. I can't wait to get back. Personally.
Wow, I know, us too. We really miss you guys, and we miss our groups, and you better be joining the groups that come this year because we want to see you. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and for connecting. And I wanted to just show you that I've got these avocados here because I know that you love them so much. And actually we have a bumper crop of avocados right now, and we're like, oops.
You guys have come a long way.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's awesome.
We're sending virtual avocado love.
We're growing icicles. They're fantastic this time of year.
Well, thank you so much for being a part of this. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having us.
Much appreciated.
Yeah. Can't wait to see you in real life.
Same.